Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about the MCU's lack of respect for Blade. So, I remember when it was announced Blade was going to get made, and then maybe a few weeks or months later, they reported something, and I've been worried ever since. And then, next thing you know, all these reports started coming out. Mahershala Ali did not like the script originally. Then Mahershala Ali wanted to quit because they wanted to make him the fourth main character of the movie as they introduce other Marvel characters. And there's a reason for all this. And I've been theorizing this for the longest time. And what's his name? Deadpool has a bit to do with this and stuff. Now, it's not Deadpool's fault. It's just there's something odd going on at Marvel. So, there's a couple of reasons why, this whole Blade movie or show, or whatever the heck they're doing, is being so difficult. They've had so many writers they fired, 2 directors they had to fire. And so, what is exactly the problem here? Well, the first problem that they announced that really gave me some concern was the rating. See, this is the Deadpool part. See, it was reported that when Deadpool was going to join the MCU, many people was worried that it would be PG-13 because all the Marvel stuff is PG-13. Well, until Echo trailer came out today. And so, PG-13 with Deadpool just ain't gonna cut it. He's violent, he cusses, there's blood, he chops off body parts and everything. It just wasn't gonna cut it. So at some point, Kevin Feige's all like, oh no, we'll keep it R-rated like the Fox movies. So I'm all like, cool and everything, you know what I'm saying? And then I'm all like, they announced Blade, and they said Blade would be PG-13. I'm like, what the freak nuts? I mean, Blade fights vampires. And with vampires, you have to have the following: people biting people, tons of blood, heads getting chopped off, people getting staked through the chest, maybe a body burning or two, and some foul language. The only time you never saw that was in Buffy. They just didn't do the whole blood thing because it was on TV of all things. But with Blade, it's a vampire, and we see he works better with blood. Even Van Helsing on Sci-Fi a few years ago, they had tons of blood in their show because TV started to change. And so I'm just like, well, hold up. Why does Deadpool get an R rating and Blade does not? And Blade saved Marvel all those years ago. It's been 2 decades now? And Blade literally saved Marvel's butt. And I'm all like, he needs to be appreciated a whole lot more than that. And so I couldn't quite understand why they would give the Ryan Reynolds movie an R rating, but not Blade. And so I'm thinking, okay, maybe they're trying to keep Blade in this whole MCU, Disney, Marvel, baby, humorous type thing, you know what I'm saying? And the whole Deadpool thing, not because, they'll alienate a bunch of fans, and people really haven't been a Blade fan in over 20 years. And so then I thought to myself, okay, maybe they're going to do more what they do with Blade in animation. There was a Blade anime, and Blade also appeared in Spider-Man, 2 different animated series. And in 2 of those things, not the 90s show, but the anime and Ultimate Spider-Man, they have vampires turn into smoke and dust and fog and all this other crap. So I'm like, okay, maybe they'll do it that way. And then maybe it'll be a little different from what it used to be. But do you really want to see that? You know what I'm saying? Do you really want to? And so, then I thought to myself, something, I bet you anything, it has to do with 2 main reasons why Blade probably got a PG-13 rating and stuff. Because one of the reasons is because Nobody really ever thinks about Blade. Like, Blade is cool and everything, but he just fights vampires. He's not really like an Avenger who's gonna go around the world trying to stop Thanos or nothing like that. He just goes around killing vampires. Nobody really tells himself, oh, I can't wait to have like a Blade animated series or a movie or a television series or anything like that. And also because that live action television show left a bad taste in people's mouth, and so did Trinity. And so you never really see people talking about, oh, I want to see Blade, I want to see Blade, because he's just a vampire slayer. You know what I'm saying? Because I remember a couple of years back, there was some Marvel video game that came out that had to do with this big world-ending event that had multiple heroes that are mostly and mainly Avengers and stuff. And I remember somebody on YouTube was talking about this video game, and they literally asked, why is Blade in here? And then there's actual dialogue from the video game where Blade literally asks, why am I here? Because nobody never really thinks of Blade. So even though he's big and he's huge and people love him, nobody never really thinks about him. So nobody was never really asking for anything. Plus, how is he going to tie into the MCU? And even though he is important, because like I said before, the Blade movie that came out in the late 90s saved Marvel when they went bankrupt. That style of like martial arts, wrestling, MMA type style they had back then, that was really something new and fresh people never really saw before, because a lot of Marvel live action movies either flopped on television because they were TV movies, or they just never got released because they was that terrible and that bad. But then they took a chance for Blade for whatever reason, and it was a huge hit. Blade is the one that helped influence the Matrix in the early 2000s, with all these people wearing sunglasses, shooting stuff up and everything like that. He was the first to do that. Not even in that TV show, The Punisher, it was like that. The dude had black sunglasses. He had a long trench coat. He had these sci-fi monstrous looking guns, and he did tons of martial arts. And he even had bullet time. This came out a year before The Matrix came out, with the sunglasses, the trench coat, the martial arts, and bullet time. So no, the Wachowskis did not create bullet time, because there is bullet time actually in the first Blade movie, but it only happens one time. But it looks different than the way the Wachowskis does it. And like seriously, it looks similar, but the CGI wasn't all that great. And people need to respect that, you know what I'm saying? But Blade doesn't get the respect that he does. And so whenever people think about the trench coats, the sunglasses, the guns, the bullet time, all that, they think of like the Matrix, Keanu Reeves, and then they start thinking about the Underworld movie series and, stuff like that. And, and one thing you'll notice about all of them, and when it comes to Blade and Wesley Snipes, is that Wesley Snipes is dark, aka he is black. Which brings me up to my second point. Let me interject right here for a second before I forget this one topic, because I completely forgot about it. I forgot all about Blade, the television series. The MCU Blade people are making the same exact mistake as that of Blade, the television series. In that television series, which I already reviewed like a long time ago, I stated, even though it's called Blade, even though Blade is in there, he was not the main focus central character. The main focus was a brand new female character they created for the show. The entire show revolved around her, and Blade played an assist to that of her character. It's the reverse of what Dr. Karen was in the first Blade movie. And I completely forgot about that. Then, for the most part, Blade is still not even the secondary character. The secondary character is the main villain of the show and everything. Then Blade and him kind of share second place, but for the most part, Blade is kind of third. We do get one backstory of Blade, and that's about it. But Blade is just there picking up the pieces and trying to, like, just kill vampires and protect her. But for the most part, it mostly just focused around her. And I can't believe they're making that same mistake again. And it's really strange and, like, bizarre. They just have no respect for the character. Blade is a black man. Now, I know what you're trying to say. You're like, well, that can't be it because Marvel's woke right now. Just let me cook for a second. You'll see exactly what I mean. See, Marvel's diversity or wokeness or whatever you want to call it is completely and utterly fake. It was established because in the first phase of the MCU, there was only one black person and one female in the entirety of heroes. That was Rhodey, who was a sidekick, and he wasn't even War Machine in the first movie. He became War Machine in the second. And then there was Black Widow. And so the thing is, Marvel did not have faith in a black superhero and stuff like that, or like even female. But we're just talking about like Blade and Wesley Snipes being black. But they did not have faith in a black man leading his own movie. In fact, the Wesley Snipes Blade movie was originally supposed to be a white guy. They wanted to make Blade white. And this is, of course, to appeal to that of a white audience. It's basically what it is. Some executive, they take a bunch of people in suits, they go around and they interview and survey a group of people, 10 to 50 to probably 100 at a time. And they tell them what they like and they don't like. They get all the data and they realize something. These people like to watch more white predominantly stuff. And most of the people they survey are mainly white and everything. I ain't never been surveyed. And so, like, this is how Hollywood thinks. This is why there isn't that much diversity in Hollywood. Back in the old Star Trek days in the 60s, they didn't want to have that many females on the bridge because they said no man is going to want to see a woman on the bridge on a daily show. They didn't want to have Uhura there who was black. They didn't want Sulu there because he's Asian and stuff. This is just the type of thing Hollywood thinks about when they make crap. They want to market it to the people who are mainly going to watch it, which of course are white people. Now, why I say Marvel doesn't have faith in a black superhero, why I say their diversity is fake, because like I said before, in phase 1 and phase 2 of the MCU, there is only one black person in that entirety of the phase. And they was in no Avengers movies. They was just Falcon and it was War Machine. Well, War Machine finally showed up. Falcon showed up in the Winter Soldier, and Rhodey's been there in all the Iron Man movies, but he didn't show up as War Machine until the second. And of course, Black Widow was the only female hero at that time. So a bunch of fans voiced their outrage and everything. Talking about, like, there are way more Avengers in the comics, though, way more diverse. How come you're not bringing them in and everything? And so around this time, of course, like, this is when a lot of black people started dying in the streets and people started recording it and the Black Lives Matter movements and stuff like that. So Hollywood hopped on the diversity train. And when they hopped on it, they didn't really do it genuine. They did it kind of like Star Trek Discovery and all these new Star Trek shows. They just checked a bunch of people off the list and they put them on there and stuff. Other shows did it, other movies did it. And it took Marvel a very, very long time to do it. Next thing you know, like the Avengers movie come out, ain't no black people in that. The second Avengers movie come out, ain't no black people in there, except for Falcon, who shows up at the end along with War Machine. Then in the next phase, we started seeing more black people. They introduced Black Panther. Black Panther was something that Wesley Snipes tried to get off the comics and into the screen back in the 90s, but they would not let him, and they finally gave him Blade. Now, what's interesting about those 3 black heroes I named is that they never had their own movie. They was just there to assist the white hero. War Machine was there to assist Iron Man. Falcon was there to assist Captain America. And Black Panther was just there to assist the Avengers as, like, they finally started incorporating some of his story into the thing, but not much. And so it took a while after that for the first Black Panther movie to come out because people have been asking for it. People have been asking for his character. I think originally he was been supposed to show up, but they decided to say no to that. And so, like, and it's because they don't have faith that a black person will be able to lead a successful movie, show, stuff like that. We get into what I like to call the DC effect. What is the DC effect? Well, back in the days, the only live action DC superhero movies were Batman and Superman only because they did not have faith in the rest of the Justice League. No Wonder Woman, no Flash, no Green Lanterns. They were relegated to television and not the movies. Then in animation, once again, it was Batman and Superman only until the Justice League came out, cartoon. Then all the animated movies came out. Batman and Superman again. And in fact, the Batman and Superman movies, there are more Batman and Superman movies than there are of any other superhero movies in the animation movie line. But they also had tons of Justice League movies. See, when Green Lantern and Wonder Woman had their solo movies along with, they didn't do so well. They was good. They was good, but they didn't make that much money as Superman and Batman. And the Justice League movies made pretty good buck as well. So, every time another hero had a solo movie, they incorporated either the Justice League or Batman. When they had a Flash movie, they incorporated the Justice League. When they incorporated Justice League Dark. Justice League Dark is the ones that deal with more magical stuff. The kind of like the anti-hero Justice League group, they incorporated Batman. When they wanted a Supergirl solo movie, they incorporated Trinity. When they had another Supergirl movie, they incorporated Superman. And that's just how it's been. When they had Jon Stewart be in his own movie, they included the Justice League because they fear that these other heroes won't make as much bang as Batman and Superman. And that's how it is for like a lot of black heroes and female heroes as that. It took nearly 10 years just for the Black Widow movie to come out. And she's been featured as an assist to other heroes in the MCU. Captain America, Iron Man, that's how, in the Avengers, that's just how she was. And it took so long for her to get her own movie. And to further this, because, they got tons of diversity now. But look how their movies have turned out. They're not being genuine with the races that they have and stuff, and the diversities and sexualities and everything else. They're just flooding the movie with as much diverse content as they can, but they're not writing and directing these movies and shows as good as they used to be. Then we get into Miles Morales. He's been around for a very long time, over a decade and a half. And when he first came out, people really didn't like him, but then they loved him and everything. But he's never really appeared in animation or live action at that time. Then he started to appear in animation, and that's all we see now. He's constantly being like thrown into almost every animated Spider-Man show or video game that's been coming out for the past decade and a half. Ultimate Spider-Man, the animated series, Marvel Spider-Man, he was in that. He was in, of course, across the Spider-Verse and everything. And he was now in the, PS4 Spider-Man games and stuff. But he's always the sidekick to that of Peter Parker, which is funny because he replaced Peter Parker in his comic books until they merged the universes. And then, he started appearing all the time alongside Peter. And so a lot of people have been asking, for the longest time, when is he getting his own cartoon series, or when is he going to show up in live action? Well, cartoon series, It took a long time for him to show up in Ultimate Spider-Man. People assumed it would be about him because it's Ultimate Spider-Man, and he was the Ultimate Spider-Man at that time. But they decided to go with Peter Parker and then bring him in later, and much later too. And then Across the Spider-Verse came out, and when Across the Spider-Verse came out, it took forever for the sequel to come out. And I was always like, why in the world is it taking so long for the sequel to come out? This is before they decided to, give everybody their own animation style, stuff like that. But this was before it was ever created. And that's because Marvel just had no faith in him. And not only that, but when Black Panther had his first movie, it took forever for the sequel to come out. And I'm all like, I don't understand this. This movie hit like 1 billion. It was well received. Everybody loved it. So why is it taking so long for the sequel to come out? This is before Chadwick passed away. And so I'm all like, it's because they have no faith. They have no faith that a black man would be able to lead their own franchise and stuff. Because the CGI in the third act of the Black Panther movie was atrocious. You didn't see that in the earlier phases. And you really didn't see it afterwards either, but you see it a whole lot more now. And this is before all the Disney Plus shows, so they wasn't overpacked with their CGI department. There was just no excuse for that. They just didn't want to give them the budget and stuff. Because they figured people, nobody's going to come see this movie. It's Black Panther. And then everybody went to it. And back with the whole Miles thing, people have been wondering, why isn't he in the MCU? His uncle's in the MCU. His uncle mentioned his nephew, but not by name. So where the heck is he? And that could be a Sony thing. Maybe. You know what I'm saying? I'm not 100% sure. But, for whatever reason, because they know people love Tom Holland. That's all people talk about. People's all like, oh, I love Tom Holland. He's better than Andrew and Toby and everything. So, of course, they don't want to mess with that magic because everybody wants Peter Parker. So, there's no way they're going to throw Miles in there and have people be all like, this ain't Tom and everything like that. And so, it's been forever and he still hasn't shown up. But now, because of Beyond the Spider-Verse and some other things, now they're working on bringing him in and everything. And it's just it's taken so long. And also, the fact that Marvel had no faith in Miles Morales, they introduced a Peter Parker from another universe to help him along in their movie. Not only that, but then they added in other Spider people from the multiverse. And it was more than just an origin story and stuff like that. It's just they had no faith he could lead the movie on his own, and they feared backlash because around this time, this is when all the toxic people started coming on the internet talking about woke this and woke that, and they killed our Peter Parker and stuff like that. So if they really truly had faith in him, they could have made a solo movie without all these other Spider people helping him along. And all those other Spider people is what a lot of people really loved in that first movie. Now they're starting to love Miles even more because Marvel had to trick their brain into liking him again. But now they're back to wanting to hate on him again because they're talking about bringing him into live action. And so people's all like, oh, they're trying to replace Peter Parker. See, it's always those type of people who help ruin things. So race always has something to do with why Hollywood doesn't want to do something, because they fear the modern audience isn't going to want to watch it. Because even a lot of people overseas don't want to see it, especially in Asian countries and stuff. And it's just that's not what they're used to seeing. And so Marvel Disney fears that, oh, we ain't gonna make that much money, so there ain't no point bringing this person in, blah, blah, blah. But then when people start getting on to them, then what happens? Then we have a Black Widow situation on our hands. And of course, the pandemic messed that up. And the movie, it was all right and pretty okay, but it wasn't what people was expecting. They was expecting to see all this cool stuff that happened to her in the past, and we didn't get that. And instead, it was just a movie to replace her and bring in her replacement and everything. And so, yeah. I honestly just believe they're just kind of like, whatever. It's Blade. He's a black superhero. Nobody's gonna care. He's there to fight vampires. It's just like whatever. Because think about it like this: if Blade, Mahershala Ali's character, really was supposed to be the fourth main star, makes you wonder who those other three people were. We know one of them's gonna be Black Knight, the dude from Game of Thrones. Some people have speculated it might be that redheaded lady from Wolf by Midnight, and who would have been the third. And those are two white actors right there. And it kind of reminds you of what happened to Wesley Snipes. The first Wesley Snipes movie wasn't that diverse, but it had two black leads along with a white lead, and of course there's the villains and stuff. But it had those two black leads. Then you go into the second movie where he fights along with vampires, and there you have another black dude who's not even really a lead and is barely in the movie. You have an Asian dude who's barely in the movie. You have that one lady, and I don't know what race she is, but both the people who play her brother and play her father are white, so they probably tried to pass her off as white. And everybody else in the movie was just as white could be. Then you get into Blade Trinity. And then Blade Trinity, that movie was entirely white, except for like one black dude who barely shows up in the movie. And so here's this black superhero in his own movie, and they're bringing in all these group of people who are all white and everything. And that's what Hollywood does. When something becomes successful, they want it to be very successful, and they wanted to market it to people who they know are going to go out and see those movies, which just happens to be white people. So I'm not surprised that the Blade, whatever they're making, show, movie, whatever, is having problems in the MCU. I'm not surprised that Mahershala Ali wants to get up and leave and everything because he sees that he's being like, disrespected and shafted. The man won 2 Oscars and everything. And he has showed up in the MCU already, but you don't see him. You hear his voice. He was in the Eternals movie, which I still have not seen. But I saw the clip where you hear his voice. They couldn't even show the man on screen. And that movie was very diverse. But they tried to be all like, ooh, who this person voice is. Well, if you don't recognize his voice, you ain't gonna know. They couldn't even show the man on screen and everything. And so it's just kind of like they just either need to get their act together or just scrap this movie altogether. It's kind of like that Black Superman movie that is supposed to come out, but we all know it's never going to come out. There's no way James Gunn's going to do that because James Gunn only wants one Superman. And in case you haven't noticed, the CW Superman having his last season. And the only reason why there's a black Superman is because of what happened on the Krypton show, where they wanted to make Superman black, but they said no. And then they wanted to make Zod black, so they did. And then when that got leaked that they didn't have a black Superman, and one person who helped create the show got fired, and was told no, that got leaked, and then DC's like, oh no. And so like, oh, don't worry, we'll have a black Superman movie coming out. Well, then next thing you know, the hierarchy of power changed and everything, and now we have our brand new Superman, and he is white. And they still talking about, oh, but we'll have that black Superman movie. They're never gonna make that movie. They're never gonna make that movie. And if they do, there's no way in the world James Gunn is gonna make it or have it be made as good as the one he's coming out with, because the one that he's making has to do well in order for him to keep his job. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.